Money is the only thing that determines a woman's worth. My mother loved to repeat, adjusting her pearl necklace that always sat perfectly on her neck, especially if she doesn't have any. I was 22, standing in the vast marble foyer of the Montgomery estate, the place I'd called home my entire life, though it never truly felt like one. My single suitcase contained everything I owned: a business degree, a notebook filled with ideas, and clothes that my mother deemed barely acceptable for someone of our standing. "Here, take this," my father said coldly, holding out a crisp $100 bill between his manicured fingers. "This is all you deserve after disappointing the Montgomery name." My crime? Refusing to marry the son of my father's business partner. A merger of families that would have secured the Montgomery Financial Group's position for another generation. Instead, I had announced my plans to start my own financial technology company. Financial technology? My father had laughed when I first told him. "Elizabeth, women in our circle don't start companies. They marry well and serve on charity boards." My mother stood on the grand staircase, martini in hand, though it was barely noon. "Lizzie, darling, it's not too late. Richard Harrington is still willing to overlook this phase. Think of the wedding, the houses, the life you could have." I looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the perfect makeup and designer clothes was a woman who had traded her dreams for diamond bracelets, each one larger than the last, trying to fill some void that kept expanding. "No, Mother. I'm done living my life to please you both." My father's face turned that dangerous shade of red I'd grown to fear. "Then get out. You're no longer a Montgomery. The trust fund, the connections, all of it. Gone." I took the $100 bill from his hand. "Keep the trust fund. I'll build something of my own." He scoffed. "You? Build something? You can barely decide what to wear without your mother's approval. Without the Montgomery name, you're nothing." Those words burned into my mind like a brand as I walked through the massive oak doors for the last time. The chauffeur who had driven me since childhood couldn't meet my eyes as I passed him. I was now a stranger. Standing on the sidewalk of our exclusive neighborhood with my suitcase and $100, I realized I had nothing else. No car. It was in my father's name. No apartment, paid for with the trust fund. No friends. They were all children of my parents' social circle. But I had something my parents couldn't understand: vision, and the determination to prove them wrong. I took a bus downtown, spending $42 on a ticket to New York City. In a dingy diner near the bus station, I used another $8 on a grilled cheese sandwich and coffee. Opening my notebook, I wrote 3 promises to myself. I would never use the Montgomery name for gain. I would build a company that would revolutionize finance. When I returned, it would be on my own terms. With $50 left, I boarded the bus to New York, the financial capital where I planned to disrupt the very industry my family had helped build over generations. Throughout college, I developed an idea that had been dismissed by my professors as too ambitious and by my father as delusional. Traditional banking served the wealthy and well-established. But what about everyone else? The gig workers, the freelancers, the small business owners working paycheck to paycheck? My vision was a financial platform that would democratize banking, providing microloans, simplified investment options, and financial education to people traditional banks ignored. The problem was building it would take millions in funding, years of development, and resources I no longer had. As the bus pulled away, I watched my hometown disappear into the darkness. I'd spent 22 years trying to be the daughter they wanted. Now it was time to become the woman I was meant to be. Little did I know this $100 journey would be the beginning of a story that would reshape the entire financial industry. In 10 years, I would build a company worth billions, revolutionize how everyday people accessed financial services, and return home, not as the prodigal daughter, but as someone they never imagined I could become. But first, I had to survive New York with $50 and a dream that refused to die. New York wasn't the glamorous city I'd visited on shopping trips with my mother. Without money or connections, it was harsh, expensive, and unforgiving. My first night, I slept in a women's shelter, my laptop bag clutched to my chest. By morning, My $50 had become $45 after buying a cup of coffee and a bagel at a local cafe. I sat there for hours, using their Wi-Fi to search for jobs and apartments, until a barista approached my table. "You've been nursing that coffee for 3 hours," she said. Her name tag read Zoe. Instead of asking me to leave, she studied me for a moment. "You're not from around here, are you? And you're stuck?" Something about her directness broke through my carefully constructed Montgomery composure. I admitted I'd left home with almost nothing and needed a job. Any job, immediately. "Well, our bookkeeper just quit, and the owner's books are a disaster," Zoe said. "You look like someone who can handle numbers. Want to talk to him?" The cafe owner, Marco, was skeptical about hiring a young woman with no references who clearly came from money. But when I organized his chaotic financial records in just 2 hours and showed him how he was losing money on his current inventory system, he offered me a job on the spot. "You can stay in the room above the cafe," he said. "Previous manager lived there. It's small, but it's yours if you want it. Rent comes out of your paycheck." Just like that, I had income and a place to live. A tiny studio apartment above the cafe that smelled perpetually of coffee and baked goods. During days, I organized Marco's books and helped the cafe run more efficiently. At night, I worked on my financial platform idea, using the cafe's Wi-Fi to research competitors and build financial models. Zoe often joined me after closing, looking over my complex spreadsheets and projections. "So basically, you're building a bank for people traditional banks don't want?" "Not exactly," I explained, showing her my plans. "Traditional banks are built on exclusivity, on keeping people out. My platform is built on inclusion, bringing people in, teaching them how to build credit, save, and invest, even with minimal resources." She stared at the screen. "And why isn't anyone else doing this?" "Because the profit margins are smaller," I smiled. "But if you scale it correctly, those small margins add up to something revolutionary." 6 months of working at the cafe gave me enough savings to rent a proper apartment with 2 roommates, both struggling tech entrepreneurs like myself. I also started freelancing as a financial consultant for small businesses in the neighborhood, helping them optimize their operations and secure microloans. That's how I met Diana Chen, the founder of a small tech startup. "Your financial model saved our business," she told me after I helped her restructure her company's debt. "What else are you working on?" I hesitated, then decided to take a chance. I showed her my platform designs and financial projections. Diana was silent for a long time, scanning through my detailed business plan. "This could change everything," she finally said. "But you'll need serious funding to build it." "I know," I replied. I didn't tell her about my family's wealth, about the trust fund I'd walked away from. "I'm working on it." Diana proved to be more than just another client. She introduced me to Professor James Lin, a leading economist at Columbia University specializing in alternative banking models. He spent hours questioning my assumptions, challenging my projections, and testing the mathematical models underlying my platform. "It's ambitious," he finally said. "Maybe too ambitious, but if it works." He paused. "I have some connections at Goldman Sachs, former students who might be interested in something disruptive. Would they meet with me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "They'll meet with your idea," he corrected. "Make it impossible for them to say no." For the next year, I worked 3 jobs, managing the cafe's finances in the mornings, consulting for small businesses during the day, and refining my platform design late into the night. I lived on instant noodles and determination, saving every penny for professional designs and a working prototype. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. After a presentation to a group of Professor Lin's former students, now mid-level executives at various financial institutions, one man stayed behind. Michael Rivera, a vice president at a major investment bank. "Your platform could disrupt the entire industry," he said bluntly. "Which means most people I know would want to crush it immediately." My heart sank, but he continued. "I'm not most people. I grew up in the Bronx. My parents couldn't even get a basic checking account until I was in high school. What you're building matters." Within a week, I had meetings with 3 venture capital firms. Diana helped me prepare my pitch, and Zoe, now the cafe manager, grilled me with tough questions every night until my answers were flawless. The first two VC firms gave the same response. Brilliant concept, but too risky. The third meeting was different. Your technology could democratize financial services, said Sofia Vasquez, the founding partner at Horizon Ventures. But why should we trust a 23-year-old unknown? I met her gaze steadily. Because financial exclusion isn't just a business problem, it's a personal one. I've spent the last year proving this model works at the micro level with small businesses across New York. Give me a chance to scale it. They invested $3 million for a 20% stake in my company, which I named Attainable Financial. The name was a statement of purpose. Financial services that were attainable for everyone, not just the privileged few. I moved operations to a small office, hired a team of brilliant developers and financial analysts, and worked harder than ever before. We faced countless technical challenges, regulatory hurdles, and moments when it seemed everything would collapse. But 2 years later, we launched our platform. The response exceeded all expectations. People who had been ignored by traditional banks flocked to Attainable Financial. Our microloan program had a repayment rate of 97%, better than most traditional banks. Our simplified investment options helped people with as little as $5 start building wealth. As our user base grew, so did interest from larger institutions. When Attainable Financial went public 3 years after that first VC investment, our stock price tripled on the first day. By the end of the week, my stake in the company was worth over $100 million. I bought my first designer suit since leaving home. Not from my mother's preferred couturier, but from a sustainable fashion brand founded by a woman who'd used an Attainable Financial loan to start her business. Zoe, now our chief operating officer, helped me choose it. Planning to show off for someone? She asked with a knowing smile. No, I said, adjusting the perfectly fitted jacket, but I think it's time to pay a visit home. I hadn't spoken to my parents in 5 years. Through business news and social media, I knew the Montgomery Financial Group was struggling. Traditional investment banking was being disrupted by financial technology firms, exactly the future I had predicted. They now faced their biggest crisis yet, a hostile takeover attempt by a mysterious fintech investment group. What they didn't know was that the firm, New Vision Capital, was a subsidiary of Attainable Financial, my company. I booked a flight home, my $100 million net worth a far cry from the $100 I'd left with, but I wasn't going back for reconciliation or revenge. I was going back to save the company my ancestors had built and transform it into something better. Diana caught me looking at an old family photo before I left. Are you sure about this? I tucked the photo away. They taught me that money was the only measure of worth. Time to show them what true value looks like. The Montgomery Financial Group headquarters hadn't changed. The same imposing limestone building, the same gold lettering, the same atmosphere of old money arrogance. But this time I walked through the front door not as the disappointing daughter, but as the CEO of the company attempting to acquire them. Miss Blake to see the board. I told the receptionist, using the professional name I'd adopted after leaving. She directed me to the top floor, not recognizing the prodigal daughter returning home. The Montgomery boardroom was exactly as I remembered. Dark wood paneling, oil paintings of past chairmen, all men, the family crest displayed prominently. I had played under that table as a child, listening to my father negotiate deals and destroy competitors. Now I sat at the head of that table waiting. They filed in one by one, board members, executives, and finally my parents. My father had aged more than 5 years should allow, his commanding presence diminished by stress and failing fortunes. My mother still wore her pearls, but her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her designer handbag. Neither recognized me at first, their eyes sliding past the confident woman in the sustainable suit. Gentleman and lady, I began, nodding to the sole female board member. I'm here representing New Vision Capital regarding our offer to acquire Montgomery Financial Group. We're not interested in being acquired by some tech upstart, my father snapped, still not really looking at me. Montgomery Financial has stood for 150 years and will collapse within 5 if you don't adapt, I cut in, letting my natural voice replace the carefully neutral tone I'd been using. Isn't that right, Father? The room went deadly silent. My father's face went from red to white as recognition dawned. My mother's martini glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the polished floor. "Elizabeth," she whispered. "Hello, mother, father. It's been a while." One of the board members, old Mr. Winters, who'd known me since childhood, actually gasped. "Little Lizzie Montgomery." "Actually, it's Elizabeth Blake now," I corrected him. "And I'm here to discuss the future of this company." My father's shock turned to anger. This is some kind of trick. You're working for New Vision?" I smiled. "No, father. I own New Vision. It's a subsidiary of Attainable Financial." I enjoyed watching their faces as the connection hit them. Yes, that Attainable Financial, the company revolutionizing banking for ordinary people worldwide. "Impossible," my father whispered. You left with nothing." "No," I said softly. "I left with $100. Your last lesson about the value of money. Would you like to know what that lesson bought?" I nodded to my assistant, who began distributing folders to each board member. Attainable Financial is now worth $2.8 billion. New Vision Capital, which you somehow failed to investigate properly, is our investment arm. Over the past year, we've been quietly buying Montgomery Financial Group stock through various entities. As of this morning, we own 43% of your shares. The blood drained from my father's face as he realized the full scope of what I'd accomplished. The daughter he'd thrown away had returned to take everything. "We also control the majority of your corporate debt, which, thanks to your recent difficulties, is substantial," I continued. "The offer is simple. Montgomery Financial will be absorbed into New Vision. The board will be restructured." I paused, looking directly at my father. "And you will step down as CEO, effective immediately." "You can't do this," he sputtered. "The family legacy." "The family legacy is dying," I cut in sharply. "Your investment strategies are outdated, your technology is ancient, and your arrogance has blinded you to the changing world. I tried to tell you this 5 years ago, but you were too proud to listen." Mr. Winters cleared his throat. "Elizabeth, surely we can discuss this. You're still a Montgomery." "No," I said firmly. "You all made it very clear that I stopped being a Montgomery the day I chose to build something new instead of clinging to something old. But unlike you, I don't believe in destruction for its own sake." I stood up, straightening my suit that cost more than that first $100 1,000 times over. "My offer includes preserving jobs, clients, and the core of what makes this company valuable. The choice is whether that happens with you or despite you. You have 24 hours to accept the offer." I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. "Oh, and father, remember when you said money was the only measure of a woman's worth? By your own measure, what am I worth now?" The next 24 hours passed in a blur of legal meetings and press inquiries. News of Attainable Financial's takeover sent Montgomery Financial Group's stock soaring. Their shareholders recognized the value of innovation, even if my father couldn't. He tried to fight, of course, calling in old favors and trying to rally support. But I had anticipated everything. Every escape route was blocked. Every potential white knight was already aligned with us. Every financial lifeline was closed. They signed the papers the next day, in the same room where he'd once handed me $100 as a parting insult. As the lawyers finalized the details, my mother approached me. She looked elegant as always, but there was something fragile in her expression I'd never noticed before. "You did all this to punish us," she said quietly. "No, Mother, I did this to build something that matters. The fact that it threatened your world of exclusivity and privilege is just a natural consequence." She seemed genuinely confused. But why help people who don't matter? Who aren't like us? In that moment, I finally understood her completely. In her view, worth really was determined by money and social standing alone. It wasn't just something she said. She believed it to her core. "That's the difference between us," I replied. "I don't believe anyone is worthless just because they weren't born into privilege." As I turned to leave, my father called out one last time. "Elizabeth, that $100. I smiled. "Best investment I ever made, Father. It taught me exactly what I didn't want to become." The transition took 6 months. I restructured the company completely. modernizing its operations and redirecting its resources toward ethical, sustainable investments and financial inclusion. Most of the employees kept their jobs. After all, this wasn't about punishing them for my parents' sins. My father retired to their estate, his pride more wounded than his wallet. I'd ensured he kept enough money to maintain his lifestyle. My mother continued her charity work, though now with a foundation that actually helped people build financial independence rather than just hosting galas. A year later, I stood in my office at Attainable Financial's headquarters, looking out over the New York skyline. My assistant brought in a small package that had arrived from my parents. Inside was a $100 bill, the same one my father had given me 5 years ago. I'd left it on his desk after the takeover signing. With it was a note in my mother's handwriting. Perhaps we were measuring the wrong things all along. I took the bill to the cafe where my journey had started. Marco still owned it, though it had expanded to 3 locations. Zoe was still my right hand at Attainable Financial, though now as president of our small business division. I left the $100 as a tip for a new barista who looked as lost as I once felt. Some might call it poetic justice, using my success to take over my parents' company. But I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because sometimes the only way to fix a broken system is to transform it from within. They say money can't buy happiness, but that $100 taught me something more valuable. The true worth of a person isn't in their bank account or their family name, it's in what they choose to build with what they have. I'd built an empire not because of the Montgomery name, but in spite of it. The $100 I left with bought me something priceless, the freedom to become who I was meant to be. The millions I returned with just proved I was right all along. And that's worth more than any family fortune.